I believe that my work, or the most interesting artwork, should reflect the world around it. And the world that I see is a very complex, evolving, dynamic thing, full of contradictions. I'm interested in nature, but not in the sense of a landscape painting of a tree and a hill, but often the way in which nature operates. So, for instance, the mathematics that are behind a tree, or the history of a hill, interests me much more than a specific tree or a hill. And the work that I do will be a confluence of science and aesthetics and philosophy. This piece is entitled Bubble Chambers, Two Discrete Molecules of Simultaneity. And it's made of two panels, and on each panel there's an identical structure which looks like a molecule of some kind. And they've been painted in exactly the same positions laboriously. Each bubble represents a specific moment from time. 8:05 a.m, 8th of August 2002. A rush hour commuter with eyes closed performs an amazing feat of mental escapology. And if we rush over this side to see this ball, exactly the same time, 8:05, 8th of August 2002, damp trouser bottoms after travelling through the dew to the battered feeding troughs. Now they're happening at exactly the same moment in different parts of the world, but they're both going to work. So there's a kind of link in the narrative between each one. So you end up with this kind of cross-section of millions of different moments that have occurred, but the way in which you could have took a completely different path through history. So they're representing a kind of just a little jump in geometry and time. So these are an attempt to make something which is bigger than oneself. They're not subjective, they're kind of an objective cross-section. They're somewhere between a painting, a poem, a story, a map. I couldn't tell you what they are. It's just a kind of the detritus from this activity that I'm doing over and over again. And I think they're interesting as works in themselves, rather than worrying whether they belong to this school of painting or that form of literature or something. I quite like them.
Keith Tyson works in a bewildering range of styles, but what brings it all together is that it's a kind of research into the hidden order behind the chaos of the universe. This sculpture features alien materials, including a bit of the moon, slowly revolving.
The name refers to a long shot that you have in gambling, and I tried to collect physical matter from the furthest reaches that we can actually acquire it from. So there's literally pieces of comets and the planet Mars, and brought them together into an orbit that would never naturally occur. If you went back in time 10,000 years and said, what are the odds of this material coming together, you would say, oh, it's billions and billions to one. But in fact, it's in front of you as a mathematical inevitability, a one-in-one chance. And so that doesn't really relate to that matter, it relates to the miracle of every single moment that exists. When you were in a cafe and there's an old lady in front of you, or that phone rings, then that's all happening together to make this coincidental moment. Okay.
The works appear to be just disconnected forms, imagery, ideas, but in fact they are connected by a gambler's version of chance, which for Tyson isn't randomness, but a highly complex system. He invented a way of matching that complexity through something he calls an art machine.
The art machine was a methodology that I came up with, which was a mixture of computers, flowcharts, books and databases, and it drew out proposals which it gave me, which I then had to make. So it would say, produce this work, which is a set of melons on a tripod with a popcorn machine on the top, which wasn't there because it was trying to say anything particularly, but it was there as a kind of manifestation of this system. And I found that an interesting philosophical problem. When you encounter this object, you can't think, what was Keith Tyson trying to say? Because that's been disallowed by this process. And you can't think, oh, what was, what culturally brought this into being? Of course, the whole project had those issues in it, why I wanted to come up with the machine, but the actual work didn't. If you're going to represent a research project as art, then the mistakes must be as interesting as the good ones. And if I'm going to leave any legacy behind, it's just this endless, continual development and working through of ideas. That's what I do. I'm just trying to make the most energetic work I can.